Check out the new Friendo U lineup at friendoshop.com and use promo code FRIENDO2024 to get 20% off store-wide. Hey, Friendo, Steve here.
And Larson.
And welcome back to Hot Takes. This is week 3 of Hot Takes. Larson, we are steaming full speed ahead with this Hot Takes video. Series.
I got the call up from Friendo Club Wrestling, and so far, so good. I don't know if it's like a Braun Breaker type push, but it's a decent kind of mid-card.
Yeah.
Not exactly upper mid-card title contention type deal, but a decent mid-card push. It's getting so far. Let's see if this continues.
All right.
Soon enough, hopefully, main event.
I'd love to see that. Well, our main event right now is probably Count Out, right? That usually does the best.
I don't know, the Raw reviews. The Raw and SmackDown reviews consistent. Well, it's not so much SmackDown. If Roman's on SmackDown, the SmackDown does all right, but otherwise,
it's whatever is hot.
Exactly.
Anyways, talk about hot take. First up from the top rope, 7734 says the word cinema is the worst thing to happen in pro wrestling in the 2020s, and it fuels tribal fans and is often used by people who don't have a full understanding of what cinema is to describe something that's just filmed nicely. Larson, what's your definition, as it pertains to wrestling, of cinema?
So when I guess my first introduction to the concept of cinema as it relates to pro wrestling was the Bloodline stuff.
Yeah.
And when people are describing, is the term overused at this juncture? Probably.
No problem about it. Definitely is.
My vantage point is the idea of wrestling being described as cinema has less to do with the cinematography of the sequence or segment or whatever itself. It's the drama inherent in it. So I think what people are trying to say is, for so many years, wrestling, so many of the stories can be kind of reduced down to, I don't like you, let's fight.
Yeah, one note.
And especially with the Bloodline stuff, we saw complex characters, complex interpersonal dynamics, high drama beyond I don't like you, let's fight. That is more comparable to prestige TV or movies.
Yeah.
And that's when people started just, I think, describing highly dramatic wrestling segments as cinema. And again, I don't think it has anything to do with, like, they're not out there shooting this at 24 frames on a Panavision camera.
Yeah.
This is a standard TV camera for the most part. They're shooting this, but the drama within the scene is what people are saying is being elevated to the level of cinema because of the drama.
Yeah, I agree with you 1,000%. I think the debate, so let's say, for the sake of argument, because I agree with you, perfect example of cinema in pro wrestling. Look, cinema is just a euphemism for this is really good. You know, just like you go to a movie, but you go to a film, whoa, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
That then film is kind of synonymous with cinema. It's not a lowly movie. It's not one of those talkies. This is cinema. This is Scorsese. Scorsese doing this.
Yes.
Yeah, high art. There you go. The idea, though, the hot take here is that it's the worst thing to happen in pro wrestling in the 2020s, and it fuels tribal fans and is often used by people who don't have a full understanding of what it is. I kind of disagree with that aspect. I have not seen it heavily applied simply to things that are filmed. We put it prominently in our thumbnail with the Roman Cody segment, largely because it was, obviously it was filmed very nicely, and it was an extended segment, something that was outside the norm, that had an extra dramatic heft to it, given the entirety of the production, that I feel comfortable saying, in my estimation, given how good I thought it was, the drama between the two characters, cinema. Would I have referred to it as such if it was in the ring? In this situation, probably not, because in your estimation, they'd be flooded with OTC chants. And it's maybe, from my estimation, a smattering even of Cody chants, depending on the crowd, I suppose. But But no, I think to a degree, the filmed nicely aspect of it can come into play.
Oh, absolutely.
Not a necessity. And I'll give you the example. I don't give a damn what the tribal chief says. And the camera moving to Roman being like, what did he just say? Because I went back and I rewatched that. That to me is like, oh, where you're on pins and needles and you don't edge of your seat and you're like, oh my God, it's so good. I can't even. Given that wrestling hasn't really approached that kind of feeling before, that it hasn't elicited that response, you need a new word for it. Cinema has become that word.
It has.
Now, where I partially agree with this, I'm not going to say it's even close to being the worst thing in the 2020s, although I appreciate the how all in he is on this take. They are, I don't know. I will say this. I've seen various other things across a wealth of other companies be referred to as cinema that don't really come close to it.
Did anybody describe Ed Edwards turning into a werewolf as cinema? That's
They should have. They should have. I'm not going to take issue with it, but then people will take this term meant to express enthusiasm for something, and if they, oh no, I don't know, this isn't cinema, then they pick it up and they start applying it to other things and being rude about it.
Anything else, though.
Yeah,
it's not unique to pro wrestling and the use of the word cinema. Like, I've never seen it on my social media feeds anyone saying, well, I like AEW better because they're more cinematic than WWE. Like, I don't see that.
Yeah, right. Yeah, there's more cinema here.
There's a lot of accounts that find avenues by which to attack the other company, and I personally haven't seen the word cinema used very often in those attacks and arguments.
I mean, I've seen in attacks and arguments, I've seen people be enthusiastic about Hangman and Swerve and refer to that as cinema. I'd agree with that because I think it's really good. Yeah. But yeah, I have not seen. And here's the thing, like sometimes when you read some of these online opinions and whatnot, you might cringe a little bit or be like, what are they even talking about right now? But I haven't really seen it thrown back. It's entirely possible that people are doing it, and I've just muted and blocked everybody. Well, apparently, good news, Larson. Now, when you block somebody, you'll be able to see what they say, defeating the entire purpose of blocking.
That might be the final straw for me.
I've said this many times.
I have too.
So, and it feels like it could be this time.
Yeah, it feels like it's such a fundamental shift in terms of how I ingest social media that it's off-putting.
I don't disagree. Anyways, let's move on to the next hot take.
Sure.
One second. I want to put a little bit of quiet space here so I know when to cut to the next hot take. Go ahead.
Next hot take here from Bobby Sheila says Bryan Danielson is wasting his last run in AEW. So I'm guessing the premise is that Bryan Danielson shouldn't be wasting his final days as a full-time professional wrestler in lowly AEW.
Oh, is that okay? Let me see if there's any subtext here that I'm. Oh wow, no, it's literally there's not even punctuation. Bryan Danielson's wasting his last run in AEW, or are we to take this to mean that
AEW is wasting Bryan Danielson's last run?
Hard to make that case. I think you're probably right about your first read on this.
Yeah, that's when I read it. That's what I thought. This is Bryan Danielson's career. It's the end of it from a full-time perspective. He's earned the right to do whatever makes him happy and fulfills him in the final days of his full-time professional wrestling career. If that's wrestling in WWE, good for him. If that's wrestling in AEW, good for him. In TNA, in some bingo hall, in Aberdeen, Washington, if that's what he wants to do in his final days as a full-time professional wrestler, good for him. I ain't going to judge how he feels like he's being used in his final run if that's what makes him happy. We could sit here and we can maybe say, all right, from a critical perspective in terms of the stories they're being told. But if he's doing what he wants to do and is making him happy, more power to him.
So, number one, I agree with everything you said. It's asinine not to take that tact. He's a grown ass man. This is how he's finishing an illustrious career, and I have no doubt if he wanted to finish it in WWE, creating cinema, he would be.
Yeah.
I will try, just for the sake of conversation, because that's what this is. I will try to take this hot take and extrapolate from a fan's vantage point, kind of along the same lines as it's a shame we never got to see, for example, Kenny Omega versus Seth Rollins.
Yeah.
It's a shame that so many things that the ball was dropped on could have been interesting to see under the current regime in WWE, in the Paul Levesque era, if you will.
Sure.
Danielson's last run as a full-time wrestler, coinciding with the first couple of years of that era, I can understand that there's some disappointment among the fan base who would love to see what WWE's current booking philosophy, how that would handle him. They seem, for example, Daniel Bryan versus Gunther on the main stage, on the big stage.
Be great to see it. Be great to see it.
There's all sorts of dream situations.
Absolutely.
There for Daniel Bryan. So I understand that. Wasting is a really harsh word. And again, this is hot takes. The point is court controversy.
Exactly. Generate discussion.
Right. But yeah, on top of that, like I've really appreciated Danielson's run in AEW because it's on his terms. Would I have ever put together, oh man, you know what dream match I'd love to see? Bryan Danielson versus Hechicero. Or who's the big dude that he wanted to wrestle from CMLL, the major name?
Blue Panther.
Blue Panther. That's a match that I want. Because I didn't know that was a match that he really wanted. But to see a guy basically have the freedom to create his own dream scenario, when, let's face it, dude, he's done everything in WWE. I don't know that we would have been getting some epic tale spun with Danielson. I'm sure maybe we could have had Danielson versus CM Punk. That would have been kind of cool. We got that 10, 12 years ago or whatever it was. But them in their current iterations, I know he has expressed relatively recently, hey, it'd have been cool to have done Punk versus Danielson while in AEW. It never lined up. But no, I think it's, the fact that we're getting Danielson versus Nigel McGuinness, this is something that's been building for a or something that has been in the cards for a very, very, very long time. Had McGuinness been, cleared to compete, we would have had it. And now, coinciding with the end of his career, we're actually going to get that match. Yeah. And I think that's pretty cool. So all these like little bits and pieces of things that he wanted to do, and then you see the big title win. Hey, I think it's been pretty cool. I think it's been much more interesting because here's the thing. If he was in WWE making cinema, we'd all be sitting there like, man, it'd be cool if we could see him do some New Japan stuff. And I know he's probably not going to end up doing the G1. He has said as much.
Yeah.
But, man, it'd be cool if we could have got XYZ that we did end up getting in AEW. I'm cool with it. I think that's really awesome to see somebody basically book their own dream career finale.
Yeah, exactly. If he hadn't gone to AEW, we wouldn't have gotten him versus Okada twice, him versus Zack Sabre Jr. twice. There's all these matches that we never would have got if, either he just went to AEW for a year and went back to WWE or whatever the case might have been. Never left to begin with. Yeah. And another reason he left is because he said he wanted to wrestle the way he wanted to wrestle.
Where the best wrestle.
Which means he wanted to wrestle in more violent matches, or matches that seem more violent. He wanted to bleed.
Come on. Ricky Starks versus Danielson, that strap match
was incredible.
Man, that was incredible. The Kenny Omega stuff, the Hangman stuff, there's really amazing stuff.
The Iron Man match with MJF.
Yeah, awesome stuff.
Just a lot of phenomenal stuff we've gotten with him in AEW. And not like him versus Gunther would be great.
Yeah.
It'd be great in a different way, though,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, sure, yeah.
It'd be great. I don't mean this to sound bad. It'll be great in like a WWE way,
Well, Gunther showing up week after week saying, your answer, is no.
You know, and Danielson would be. Here's the thing: is I'm sure Danielson would go in and be like, they'd have their production meeting, and the agents would be like, "You're gonna do this, this, and this," and he and Gunther would shake their heads. Okay, yeah, that's fine. They'd leave and like chop the fuck out of me.
Oh yeah,
chop me
yeah.
100 times this match.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
And no one's gonna say anything to him because Gunther's the champ. Danielson's Danielson. This is his retirement tour.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
So he would just go out there and do within certain parameters, do what he wants.
Mm-hmm.
But he's not going to be able to bleed like he does in AEW. I mean, that's to say that's a necessity, but that's something he really wants to do because he thinks it enhances the drama.
Dude, we saw him for 10 years in WWE. Let's see him outside. There's a whole other world of pro wrestling. Yeah, no, I'm with you on that one, man. Before we get to the next one, man, would you like to pay some bills?
Let's do it. Let's take a break here. Get word from the sponsor of today's episode, Tecovas. When I was a kid, Steve.
Mm-hmm.
Little Larson.
Little tiny Larson.
I used to have a pair of Western boots that I would wear all the time, and I mean all the time. But now I'm sitting here as adult Larson, and I'm thinking, I don't know if I can pull off wearing boots like that now. What?
You know, of course you couldn't wear those boots now, man. You had them when you were a kid. They're way too small for you now.
Oh, my goodness.
What a weird situation you're talking about there. But listen, man, I got good news for you. I do think you could totally pull off wearing a pair of Tecovas. Tecovas crafts quality Western boots for everybody, from ranchers to cowboys to first-time boot buyers like yourself. Tecovas reviews are off the charts positive, with Esquire saying, quote, "There's a reason we keep coming back to Tecovas." A lot of reviewers mention that they fit great, they're easy to put on and super comfortable. They're going to feel right out of the box. Plus, with Tecovas' Best in the West guarantee, you get free returns and exchanges for 30 days.
Ah, easy to put on, you say. Fit great. Comfortable. Sounds like I owe it to my feet to pull on a pair of Tecovas. Right now, get 10% off at tecovas.com/raw when you sign up for email and text. That's 10% off at tecovas.com/raw. tecovas.com/raw. See site for details. Tecovas. Point your toes west.
All right, man. Next hot take we got here is from Juan Batista. Can you give us some Batista theme song for this one?
Well, I'm doing the thing.
Perfect.
Something or another in the pit of danger.
He says Cody Rhodes' championship reign is the equivalent of a boring Hulk Hogan world title reign in WCW pre-NWO. The chase may have been so good that the reign has no chance to live up to it. So what we need clearly, Larson, is a dark Cody era like we got dark Hulk Hogan for a while. And he needs to feud with the Dungeon of Doom, some sort of new Dungeon of Doom.
Obviously. But I guess Cody would have to stop bleaching his hair then, yeah?
Yeah, it'd have to be like that one Dynamite where he fought Brody and he came back as like, you know.
It was supposed to be a reference to the death of Superman and stuff, wasn't it? Isn't that what he said?
Well, I think he said that. He should have had a mullet then.
I know.
Yeah, man.
Exactly. Steve, you're number one Cody fan. What's your take on this?
Boring. Okay, it's a bit much to compare it to that era of Hulk Hogan. So here's one thing I will say. From a creative standpoint, it has not been all that compelling. Also, from a creative standpoint, I'm kind of curious to see if some of these things that have been laid down, like the Kevin Owens stuff, is going to lead, if it's laying down some groundwork for a larger Cody issue that he's going to encounter, which is teaming with Roman is going to piss off a lot of people that he had befriended, or some people might say manipulated. I think there's some really interesting stuff that could be around the bend if they're really going to try hard at this. He still gets incredible reactions.
Would you see that he's like in the top 5 merch sellers on Fanatics, like the entire site?
Yeah.
So he's selling a ton of merch still. He's still wildly popular. Yeah.
He's wildly popular. I think, it makes me wonder also if one reason they did that Georgia Tech thing is so that the focus wouldn't be on whoa, he's getting more OTC chance. Oh, there's some Cody stuff there. They want these guys to be on the same page. I thought it was a work of. I thought that for several reasons, the Georgia Tech thing was a good idea.
Cinema, even.
Cinema, some may say. But no, I that Hulk Hogan reign. Here's the proof in the pudding, if you will. Were people wildly cheering Hulk Hogan pre-NWO, Larson?
No,
they weren't.
No, they weren't.
So yeah, look, the AJ thing, I thought was salvaged by the fact that they just had a killer match, Logan Paul I could do without. I'm trying to think some of the other ones. Kevin Owens was his Solo. I mean, honestly, if they had done a better job building up Solo, then I think that could have been more compelling. But that's also kind of things are still in motion right now. I think by the time WrestleMania comes back around, things are going to be vastly more interesting for both Cody and the Bloodline. And I think it's probably going to forgive some of the treading water that they've done with Cody Rhodes as a champion. It can't all be cinema. You can aim for that, but it can't be. Even during the Bloodlines run, it wasn't all cinema. There were weeks at a time where like, yeah, kind of spinning wheels right now, and then something cool would happen. So yeah, I know I sound like a Cody apologist, but really it's not at Cody's feet. It's at Triple H's feet. We saw SmackDown for a while. They really were not bothering to do much of anything interesting over there, including the U.S. title scene, trying to build up guys like Carmelo Hayes and Andrade. You know, they finally got around to that because of both those guys together in a series. But there's been a couple, the entire run of Bayley. There's been a couple drop balls, and you can't really put that at the feet of Cody. And I'm not saying that this hot taker is. But I feel like once they get around to like War Games leading up to the Rumble, once the final boss shows up, I think things are going to get a bit more interesting.
Yeah, it's just a bummer that it's the nature of the industry where Roman took some time off after WrestleMania. You know, he's earned that right, and it's good for him. But in terms of finding ways to continue the saga minus one of the lead players in said saga is difficult, and there was a lot of spinning of the wheels. You know, a lot of the Cody stories or feuds, I should say. There wasn't a whole lot of stories really. It's just more feuds. You know, like with AJ, it was like, oh, I respect you, and then AJ like turns on him, and they have the I Quit match. All right, well now I got to beat you now. I really have to beat you. I have to threaten you with ring steps. Again, the Logan Paul thing I could have done without, because I don't think that added anything to what Cody's kind of narrative arc is right now. And I almost kind of feel like I wonder if it would have been better to do the Kevin Owens match after Bad Blood.
You know, dude, it's interesting you say that, because I know we got this past week kind of a copy paste of what we had prior to like Roman's return. That being said, I appreciate the effort being given to, we're not going to do things like super linear. You know, it's like, we are going to do this, move on, and revisit that. Now, I feel like there was probably a better way to execute it so it didn't feel so copy paste, but I kind of like the idea of Kevin Owens loses a big one, then he has to kind of ruminate on a little bit. He's still trying to be a good guy with, was it the Street Profits or whatever?
Yeah.
And then when Cody shows back up, after Kevin Owens is noticing him hanging out with Roman Reigns, you know, I was okay with that before. I kind of appreciate that it's not the most pro wrestling way that they typically go.
I'm not trying to say it should have been one way or the other. I was just mulling it in my brain if it would have been maybe more effective if, you know, they'd gotten out of this Roman stuff and Kevin Owens is like, my friendship with you, Cody, is just hanging by a thread. And Cody's like, oh, by the way, I'm gonna bequeath upon you a title opportunity because you've been so loyal to me and such a good friend. If
you and I are sitting there with the whiteboard, right?
Yeah.
I could see us being like, hey, what if we do this here? Do this, that'll affect, you know, Kevin Owens and Cody Rhodes do this. Cody then moves on to Roman, and because of that, you get this outcome with Kevin Owens. It's just the execution, the copy paste nature of it, even the camera going close to Kevin Owens during the hug, the chair. It all felt so copy paste. It's like, do something different with that, you know?
Well, they're going to get it a third time, more or less the same, except this time Kevin Owens is actually going to hit him.
Evidently, they go by the rule of fours now because Gunther said no for a third time.
Yes.
So
Again, changing the conventions of modern storytelling, WB. Cinema, if you will.
It's cinema. It's their
cinema.
It's new cinema. It's cinema 2.0.
There we go. Metal Pulse with a hot take.
Hot.
Says, without AEW, Cody Rhodes wouldn't be the guy in WWE.
Cold take. Totally true.
This is 1,000% true.
You have to go on that journey. I think even Cody Rhodes would admit to that one.
You can say the same thing about Drew McIntyre, that Drew McIntyre wouldn't be a main eventer had he not left WWE. 1,000% that's the case.
Yeah.
They both went out away from WWE, reinvented themselves, built up their brands, made themselves larger stars, and came back and achieved wildly greater success. No, I don't think that is a very tepid take, and I think the take most people would agree with.
Yeah, it's not even a slam on like Cody. It's like it's just people's journeys, you know. Without us getting laid off by Machinima, we wouldn't be where we are going on right now. You know, without Machinima, we wouldn't be where we're at, you know. So, yeah, I agree with that one totally. There was another take on here. I should probably find the name that said Ring of Honor champion Cody is more interesting than WWE champion Cody.
Well, he's a heel. That helps.
Yeah.
Like a lot.
I'll say this. Yeah, I agree with that. Because he was a bad guy. He was more interesting.
He was
because
all those promos he used to do backstage, the press conferences after his matches in New Japan.
Oh, those were so.
When he and Brandy
don't even remind me of those. Those
were so good.
Couldn't he inject some of that into his face persona?
That's what I'm talking about. Atticus here says, I want Kevin Owens to sign with AEW. It's clear to me that he'll never be a world champion again in WWE. And every story he's in, he comes out looking like a chump. I'm much more excited for potential stories and matches he can have with Hangman, Swerve, and Darby. I'll say this. I don't think he comes out looking like a chump. I think what what he's doing is his character is going on a journey, and he has someone who's done awful things in his past.
Yeah.
And is trying to reconcile that with who he is now. And very often, all his previous misdeeds come back to haunt him. And he's on, there's this battle within him about which way to go in terms of the face heel thing. Haven't really seen. Well, we have seen it because he almost hit Cody with a chair.
Twice.
And so I don't think he's looking like a chump per se. I feel like Kevin Owens especially, is very attuned to making sure his character isn't one-dimensional.
You're absolutely right about that. But here's my counter to that. Part of that is looking like a chump. Because he's neutered. He's like lobotomized. He's not being the fullest version of Kevin Owens that he could possibly be. And once we get that, it's going to be awesome. But trying to reconcile reality from the story. He was a good guy because Vince McMahon wanted him to be a good guy for this last run or whatever. And Kevin Owens had to do the heavy lifting when it came to, okay, how do I justify this on screen? How does my character justify this? And so because he wasn't being given creative direction there, it was all on him. And so he wasn't being given real stories. I mean, he was a bad guy, three years ago at WrestleMania? The Austin stuff. And then it wasn't long after that he went back to being a good guy for the Sammy stuff at the next Mania. And, that run was kind of tepid. And even then you can kind of see little he's I don't like being happy-go-lucky guy. But yeah, I think once he goes back to being a bad guy, I think it's going to be really fun. And I think Triple H has always loved Kevin Owens.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely.
We saw it on camera. He gave him the, what's-his-face a pedigree and basically handed him the Universal Championship.
Seth.
Yeah, that's right. Seth is the number one guy, and he gave that to him.
As far as Kevin Owens going to AEW, I mean, I don't anticipate it happening. WWE will pay him a ton of money. He seems happy. He seems very comfortable there.
Once you're a family guy, stability is something.
Is very important. And will
And
he
he's
ever
got
be?
a lot of friends in WWE.
He does. And being world champion again, I think as a wrestler, probably isn't the end all be all.
Oh, I think that,
And I think as much as
yeah.
Triple H likes him and as talented as what he is, you can't discount that he'll never be a world champion in WWE. He's always involved. He's always on TV. He's always doing something.
Do you think Chad Gable's upset that he didn't win the Intercontinental Championship? Do you
No.
think he regrets re-signing because he didn't
Not
win
at
the
all.
No, because look at him now. He's leading his own faction. He's on TV every week. He's in a high-profile thing
Well,
with
he
the
was
Wyatt
leading his
Six
own
for a
faction
while.
when he was losing Intercontinental title matches too.
This faction's way better. In kayfabe, this faction's way better. He had an upgraded faction, man. Oh, man. Oh, by the way, the person who said Ring of Honor champion Cody was more interesting than WWE champion Cody was Tim Gioia. Tim. His name is Tim.
Okay. Tim.
Thank you,
Thank you, Tim.
Next hot take, Larson.
Next hot take, Tyler Warden says, moving Raw to Netflix. Oh, monumental.
I can't wait. I can't
Massive.
stand having to figure out how to get on the streaming app on my phone and then cast that to my TV. It's like duct tape.
Oh, doing it through the Xfinity deal?
Yeah.
Yeah. So Tyler says the move to to Netflix is going to be more impactful. The launch of W Network and yield better results.
So here's the thing. I'm moving Raw to Netflix is a bigger move than the launch of the WWE Network.
I don't
That was a
know.
pretty
That's
big
kind of
move.
apples to oranges. I think if you said the move to Netflix is going to be more impactful than putting premium live events on Peacock, that's a discussion.
Yeah.
Because I'm pretty sure Netflix has more subscribers than Peacock does. I'm pretty confident saying that, even though I don't have your data in front of me.
No, I think you're right. Yeah. Netflix is like number
Massive. In terms of reach, and streaming services at least, I think the two you probably want to be on would be Netflix and Amazon, I would guess.
Yeah,
Everybody has Amazon Prime.
Everybody has Prime.
And so as far as getting your product as far in front of as many eyeballs as possible, in terms of streaming stuff at least, those are the two you want to go with. And we saw the results, or we've seen evidence of results via the quarterly financial calls of the numbers for premium live events on Peacock. And, whether this is spin from a corporate standpoint or not, it's like, oh, this pay-per-view was the most viewed stream pay-per-view we ever had because it's on Peacock. The move to Netflix makes a ton of sense.
Yeah.
Just in terms of getting your product in front of new potential viewers.
Yeah.
So everybody's got Netflix. I might put it on Monday evening, be like, oh, what is this? I remember the WWF from when Macho Man and Hogan were wrestling in the 80s. What are they doing now?
Well, these days it's more like, oh, I remember Stone Cold. He was great.
Yeah.
A bigger move than the launch of the WWE Network. I mean, okay, so I'll take the other side of this. Not that this is a debate show, but
Yeah, this is a match chat. We could agree.
So here's the thing. Moving Raw, I think we do. Moving Raw to Netflix is akin to just, okay, it's changing channel. At this point, it's like it's changing channels.
Oh, yeah.
The launch of the WWE Network was a significant paradigm shift in their business model. So if you want to say a bigger move, like I think the bigger risk was creating the WWE Network.
Absolutely, because the
in terms
cost
of
to launch that were astronomical, I'm sure.
Yielding better results than you're 1,000% right. It's apples and oranges. Will yield better results than the WWE Network did? Yeah, because of exactly what you just said. Netflix is like everywhere.
Netflix is paying them for the content. There's no overhead for broadcasting Raw on Netflix as opposed to broadcasting premium live events on the network.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
They have all the infrastructure costs were on them for the network. That's why they licensed things out to begin with, because they didn't want to deal with, because they're probably losing tons of money on the network.
Yeah, probably. I would imagine. So yeah, cheap ass network, $9.99. What the heck?
Oh, it's a great value as a consumer, but for them, I'm sure they were losing money hand over fist on it.
Yeah, it ain't about great value for the consumer anymore, man.
You got that right.
I don't worry about that anymore.
Oh, gosh.
Let's move on to the next hot take. Brian
right.
Saber says, all these years later, I still think it was a mistake to abandon the WWE Network. I understand it was probably a money decision, but the network is way better than Peacock, especially when it comes to live events.
The UI on Network was great. The search feature worked great. Search feature on Peacock is bad. Like, you search anything with any degree of specificity on Peacock for wrestling, and you'll get nothing.
Try searching SummerSlam 1993. No results. You
Yeah.
have to just search SummerSlam, go to click on SummerSlam, and then try to find what episode it is.
Yeah, season whatever. Yeah, and try to do the math in your head of when the first SummerSlam was, and you got to add.
Bro, I got to do math every time. I was late. It was late on Saturday, I think. And I was just like, I want to check out some of the days of the SmackDown 6 the Heyman episodes of SmackDown. Yeah. Season fucking started in fucking 99.
I want 2003. That's got to be what?
Season 4? What episode is it? Yeah.
Yeah.
No, Network was awesome, especially because then you get to figure out, like, what line did they not want to cross with certain wrestlers, like Chris Benoit, and who was the dude in ECW?
Oh, yeah.
It wasn't the Red Rooster. That was what's-his-face. It was Rockin' Robin. That's who it was.
Yeah,
singles action for both those guys.
Yeah.
No,
that's 1,000% a money decision. Like I said, this probably cost a fortune to operate the network every year.
Yeah, it's like from our point of view, like, it sucks. Was it a mistake? No, God, no. From a business point of view, oh my God.
Instead of, like throwing hundreds of millions of dollars at network to keep it afloat, you're getting every year hundreds of millions of dollars to license your content to another streaming service, thus eliminating all the overhead for the streaming service you're now getting rid of.
Hey, here's the thing, man. If I was running that business, I'd do the exact same thing.
So from a business perspective, it's the best decision they could have made.
Stick it to the little guy like Brian Saber. C.T. Van here, also with a hot take, says AEW and WWE are more alike now than ever, with AEW leaning more into sports entertainment, while WWE starts dialing back the schedule so their performers can enjoy a lighter workload / juggle home life. As just a couple of examples, now neither are an alternative product. So here's the thing. I disagree on that last bit, because if you do want where the best wrestle, if you're a fan of the Meltzer shit, then AEW is the alternative. If you're like, man, this match was 7 minutes long, I want something that's 70 minutes long, you go to AEW, you get like matches that are 10 times the length. That being said, I do think, here's my hot take on this hot take. AEW and Tony Khan discovered that the WWE way of doing creative is the only way that works for weekly television. And in that, you got a room full of 27 writers, and they're pitching stuff at you. And then, and that's how it works. One guy with his fucking legal pad ain't the deal, man. That's not how it gets it done. And we saw AEW struggling just to figure out what the fuck they were a year ago. Now you got 27 writers in a room. You start hiring wrestlers and their writers, and look what happens. It's like, hey, your product, it might not be for everybody. And I know there are still plenty of people out there who are like, grr, but it is a more consistent creative show.
It is. Yeah. No, there's still a major difference. The quality of, in time dedicated to in-ring action in AEW outpaces, I would think, that would be on a weekly basis. On a minute-by-minute basis. And I doubt it's even close. I think like the first hour and a half of Raw last night had maybe 3 matches. Maybe. And I know AEW is doing a lot more talky segments, promos, interviews, stuff like that. But, you'll still get, for whatever reason, we got Chris Jericho versus Orange Cassidy for 20 minutes to kick off Dynamite last night. Did anybody ask for it? No, but it's where the best wrestle. So Orange Cassidy got an opportunity to show that he can wrestle really well in that match.
I mean, the ironic thing is, if you remember when AEW, so much of AEW's like first year and a half was kind of like not really, it was an alternative in that it was like, hey, these guys don't tell logical stories. These guys don't give you beefy matches. These guys don't. It was like just doing right what WWE, what Vince McMahon was doing wrong. That was seemingly the goal. It's like, oh, they dropped the ball. You never got to see Undisputed Era on the main roster stage. Well, we got something that's kind of like a main roster stage. We're going to bring those guys over here, and we're going to see what that looks like. CM Punk in a major cable channel wrestling show, being able to do CM Punk things. Yeah, we're going to bring him over here, and he's going to do that stuff because Vince kind of, had him fighting Ryback for the last year of his run there in WWE. So yeah, and then eventually they came to realization. Well, they didn't want to be WWE, and then now they're just sort of like, yeah, we're gonna structure things in kind of a WWE way, but we're still gonna be a wrestle show.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And therefore an alternative.
Yeah,
because that's one thing they do drastically different than WWE does on a weekly basis.
Yep.
So.
Yep.
Damon Harden says Nigel McGuinness versus Bryan Danielson was booked without much of a build because Tony Khan wholeheartedly believes that AEW fans are smarter than WWE fans.
Oh my God!
Wow, I don't know what Tony Khan's perspective is on the intelligence of AEW fans versus WWE fans.
Dummies, us Fed fans.
But I'm guessing it was booked in the way it was because it came together very last minute.
I feel like it was booked the way it was because they had to shoehorn this thing in his last batch of full-time matches.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's probably why it was booked the way it was.
I don't think he was sitting there and people were pitching him stories like, no, we're not going to use any of these stories for this. This is what we're gonna do because AEW fans are so much smarter than WWE fans. I didn't even get like why if he thought that, why would he have booked it this way? I don't get it. Like
I don't know because I guess some sort of is the idea that AEW fans would be more willing to go out and do their own research? Is that what it is? To Google their old matches or something like that?
Well, that's kind of different though, isn't it? Like
it is because WWE fans, you throw a QR code on the screen and they'll go down.
Holy shit, that's a great example.
I can't claim credit for that. I saw that someone said that on social media.
Oh, that's a good one though.
I know it was really good. People complain about having to Google matches when they'll do a deep dive on the internet for a QR code and stuff like that.
That's a great point. That is a great point. Yeah.
So I forgot where I was going with that. Whoever said that, it's a good point.
Yeah, great point. We can end on that one. Anyways, be sure you hit that subscribe button and the notify bell because every week on Mondays we put up the thread for the hot takes because we recorded on Tuesday the next day. So be sure you hit that subscribe button and the notify bell. If you like this episode, give it a thumbs up. Leave some comments. The algorithm really likes the comments. Yes. And thanks for tuning in.
Thumbs up and engagement. Yeah, that's what it is. Engagement.
Till next time, we'll see you guys later.
Goodbye.